Today is Tuesday, February the 21st. It's a joy to be coming to you today as we continue our chronological study of God's Word today. Our chapter reading is Genesis chapter 45, and the title of today's devotional is Forsaken by Man, but not by God. Now, we are entering directly into Genesis 45. We've been following this whole wonderful setting of Joseph being reunited with his brothers, who still do not know that this man in the garb of the ruler of Egypt is actually the brother whom they had sold into slavery some 22 years earlier. Allow me to begin today's devotional. Now, Joseph, unable to contain his emotions any longer, suddenly cries out, and he says, calls every man to go out from me. Genesis 45 verse 1. With all his servants gone now, and only his brothers present, Joseph began to weep with great force and wailing, so much so that not only his servants, but even the house of Pharaoh would hear of his weeping. And then, speaking for the first time in the Hebrew language without an interpreter, Joseph confesses to his brothers, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? Now imagine that moment. These brothers had betrayed, sold their brother as a slave, and yet now he stands before them. He is a powerful ruler in Egypt, and a man to whom they bowed in fear and reverence. Joseph, with the authority of a sovereign and the compassion of a brother, states in their tongue, come near to me, I pray you. With fear and awe and dread, Joseph's brothers drew near, and he confessed, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. And calming their anxieties, he consoled his brothers, saying, be not grieved nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. Now this phrase is so important. For God did send me before you to preserve life. Genesis 45 verse 5. Take a moment and meditate on that. God did send me before you to preserve life. Rather than bitterness and vengeance, Joseph's words conveyed a reassuring spirit of faith and forgiveness. He had come to see the hand of God's providences in his life. And Joseph, confessing his faith, said, so now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, Lord of all of his house, and a ruler, one with power and authority throughout all the land of Egypt. Now Joseph knew there were yet 5 years of famine, and therefore he commanded his brothers, go up from Egypt up into Canaan to my father, and say unto him, thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt, come down unto me, tarry not. And he promised his brothers, thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, a land known for its pastures and grass. Thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And when Joseph had finished speaking, we read in verse 14 and 15 that he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck, the youngest brother, the one full brother of Joseph, and Joseph wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Oh, what a happy reunion this was. In fact, after that, kissing his brother Benjamin, it says that Joseph then kissed all of his brethren, and he wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. Can you imagine the conversation that passed between Joseph and his brothers? He had many questions about their homes, their families, the father. But he also, through tears and laughter, conveyed all that had passed in the 22 years he had been apart from them. Now the news of Joseph's reunion with his brothers had reached Pharaoh's household, and the king of Egypt was pleased. And Pharaoh decreed that the wagons should be taken to Canaan, and the children, wives, and Joseph's father be conveyed to Egypt. Can you imagine that parade of Egyptian wagons going to Canaan? Pharaoh promised all the good of the land of Egypt will be theirs, Joseph's family, and they would have need of nothing. Stunning news. Imagine the spectacle when an Egyptian train came within sight of Jacob's encampment in Canaan. When he heard that Joseph was alive and governor over all the land of Egypt, we read in verse 26 of Genesis 45 that Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And yet, seeing the wagons and all the provisions that had been sent to him by his son, Jacob's spirit was revived. And in verse 28 we read, Israel, that is Jacob, said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive, and I will go and see him before I die." Jacob was content. The Lord had preserved his life into his old age. He's now 130 years old, and answered the longing of his heart. Before he died, he would see Joseph. Now, I want to take a moment as I close, and I want to reflect on God's providences in Joseph's life. When he was young, his mother, Rachel, gave birth to his brother Benjamin and died in childbirth. Without his mother, he grew up in a home in which he was resented and hated by his brothers, who would have killed him had they not elected to sell him as a slave. He was falsely accused by Potiphar, his master's wife. He was a prisoner until the Lord directed Pharaoh to promote him to the second most powerful throne in Egypt. Joseph was rejected, tried, forsaken by man, but listen, but not by God. I close with Psalm 34, verse 19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him, the righteous, out of them all. I'm not sure what troubles, trials, difficulties you might be going through. You might have enemies like Joseph had brothers who hated him. You might find yourself falsely accused. But remember this, though men might forsake you, if you are righteous and just in pursuing God's will for your life, God will never forsake you. The Lord bless you. Turn your life, turn your troubles, turn your trials, turn your joys and blessings to the Lord, for He loves you. God bless you, and bye-bye.